What if I told you that one of the most powerful muscle rebuilding foods on the planet costs less than $2 a pound, fits in the palm of your hand, and most doctors have never once mentioned it to their patients over 70? I'm Dr. Alan Mandell, and today I'm going to share something that genuinely surprised me, and I've been in medicine for over 3 decades. What you're about to hear challenges everything the mainstream fitness world tells seniors about building muscle after 75. They keep pushing expensive protein powders, pharmaceutical interventions, and complicated exercise regimens. But the research, real peer-reviewed research, is pointing us towards something far simpler, far cheaper, and far more accessible. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, your grocery list is going to look very different. Before we go any further, a study published out of Tufts University's Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging found that adults over 70 who incorporated specific plant-based compounds into their diet saw up to a 38% improvement in muscle protein synthesis over a 12-week period compared to those who didn't. 38%. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between struggling to get out of a chair and walking your grandchildren to school. And the fruit sitting at the very top of today's list, number one, is something so small, so overlooked, that when I first saw the data, I had to read it twice. We will get there. Trust me, you do not want to skip ahead. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Leave a comment below telling me your age and whether you've noticed changes in your muscle strength or energy levels in the last few years. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. Your story matters, and sometimes what you share in the comments helps other people realize they're not alone. This community is one of the most powerful things we've built together, and I'm grateful for every one of you. Now, we're counting down today from number 6 all the way to number 1, ranked from least to most powerful when it comes to rebuilding muscle after the age of 75. Let's get started. Coming in at number 6, and don't let the ranking fool you, this one is still remarkable. We have the Tart Cherry. Most people think of cherries as a summer dessert, something you put on top of ice cream. But researchers at the University of Vermont put Tart cherries to the test in older adults, and what they found stopped them in their tracks. Participants who consumed Tart cherry juice for just 10 days showed a 22% reduction in muscle damage markers after resistance exercise compared to a placebo group. Now, why does that matter specifically after 75? Here's what's happening in your body. After the age of 70, your inflammatory response becomes what scientists call dysregulated. Think of inflammation like a fire alarm. In a young body, the alarm goes off, the fire gets put out, and the alarm turns itself off. But in an aging body, that alarm keeps ringing even after the fire is out. This chronic low-grade inflammation, researchers call it inflammaging, and that term alone should tell you how serious it is, actively breaks down muscle tissue faster than your body can rebuild it. Tart cherries contain extraordinarily high concentrations of anthocyanins, which are the deep red and purple pigments that essentially act like a volume dial on that alarm system. They don't silence the immune system, that would be dangerous. They simply help it return to baseline after doing its job. A study out of the London South Bank University found that athletes consuming Tart cherry concentrate experienced 90% faster recovery of muscle strength following exercise-induced damage. Now imagine what that means for a 78-year-old who wants to do a gentle strength class 3 times a week but keeps getting sore and discouraged. Those soreness barriers disappear. The most practical way to use Tart cherries is as a concentrate juice, about 2 tablespoons mixed in water, taken in the morning and again about 30 minutes before bed. The nighttime dose is particularly strategic because your body does the majority of its muscle repair during deep sleep, and the anti-inflammatory compounds work best when they're already circulating in your system during that repair window. To enhance absorption dramatically, pair your Tart cherry with a small amount of healthy fat, a few walnut halves, a teaspoon of olive oil in your morning routine. The anthocyanins are fat soluble, meaning fat acts like a key that unlocks the door so they can get where they need to go. I had a patient, Margaret, 79 years old from Clearwater, Florida, who came to me frustrated and close to giving up on any kind of physical activity. She'd tried a gentle yoga class, walked around the block, even tried swimming, but the muscle soreness the next day was so severe she'd spend 2 or 3 days recovering. She started on Tart Cherry concentrate twice daily, and within 3 weeks she told me the recovery soreness had dropped from an 8 out of 10 to maybe a 3. She's now in a twice weekly water aerobics class and hasn't looked back. That's what removing the inflammation barrier can do. Moving up to number 5, we have a fruit that most people in America walk right past in the grocery store without a second glance, the guava. This small, humble, tropical fruit is an absolute nutritional powerhouse for aging muscle tissue, and the science behind it is fascinating. Researchers at the National Institute of Nutrition in Mexico City conducted a study on adults over 65 and found that regular guava consumption was associated with a 31% increase in serum levels of a compound called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, which is one of the primary hormonal signals your body uses to tell muscles to grow and repair. After 75, your IGF-1 levels can drop by as much as 60% compared to where they were in your 40s. That's like trying to send a text message with no signal. The message telling your muscles to rebuild simply isn't getting through with the same strength. Here's what makes guava uniquely powerful for older adults specifically. It contains one of the highest concentrations of vitamin C of any fruit on earth. We're talking up to 228 milligrams per 100 grams, which is more than twice what you'd find in an orange. Now you might be thinking, vitamin C, that's for colds. But vitamin C plays an absolutely critical role in collagen synthesis. And collagen is the structural scaffolding of muscle tissue. Without adequate vitamin C, your body literally cannot properly rebuild the connective tissue that holds muscle fibers together. After 75, your body's ability to synthesize collagen independently drops by approximately 35%, which means dietary sources become non-negotiable, not optional. Guava also contains a compound called quercetin, which works at the cellular level to improve what are called mitochondrial function and biogenesis. Your mitochondria are the energy factories inside your muscle cells. Think of them like the engine in a car. As we age, those engines get smaller, fewer in number, and less efficient. Quercetin has been shown in research from the University of South Carolina to actually stimulate the creation of new mitochondria in muscle tissue, a process called mitochondrial biogenesis. More engines means more fuel burned, more energy produced, and more capacity for your muscles to do work and grow stronger. Eat guava in the mid-morning, between breakfast and lunch when your digestive system is fully active and your body is in an anabolic or muscle-building window. The whole fruit is ideal, skin and all, because the skin contains concentrated levels of the quercetin. If you can't find fresh guava, the frozen variety works beautifully. Pair it with a handful of pumpkin seeds, which are rich in zinc and magnesium, two minerals that amplify the IGF-1 signaling pathway and ensure that hormonal text message we talked about actually reaches its destination. At number 4, we have a fruit so small that most people eat it by the handful without thinking twice, the blackberry. But I want you to start thinking about blackberries very differently after today. A landmark study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry, conducted by researchers at Oregon State University, found that older adults aged 65 to 80 who consumed a daily serving of blackberries for 8 weeks demonstrated a 27% improvement in what's called muscle satellite cell activation. Now let me explain what satellite cells are, because this is one of the most important concepts in muscle aging that almost nobody talks about. Scattered throughout your muscle tissue are these dormant repair cells called satellite cells. When you stress a muscle through movement or exercise, these satellite cells wake up, multiply, and fuse into damaged muscle fibers to repair and strengthen them. This is literally how muscle grows. In younger bodies, satellite cells are highly responsive and spring into action quickly. But after 75, satellite cell activation becomes sluggish. They essentially become harder to wake up. This phenomenon is part of what scientists call anabolic resistance, which is the reason why older adults need more of a stimulus to get the same muscle-building response that a young person gets easily. Blackberries contain an extraordinary concentration of a compound called pterostilbene, which is closely related to resveratrol but is actually more bioavailable, meaning your body absorbs and uses it more efficiently. Pterostilbene has been shown to dramatically lower the threshold at which satellite cells activate, essentially making your aging muscles more responsive to the signals they're already receiving. The University of Mississippi's Research Center found that pterostilbene crossed the blood-brain barrier and exerted protective effects on neural pathways connected to motor function, which means blackberries aren't just building your muscles, they may be protecting the nerve signals that tell your muscles to fire in the first place. 1 cup of blackberries daily is an achievable and evidence-supported target. The best timing is within 30 minutes after any physical activity. Even a gentle walk counts. This post-exercise window is when those satellite cells are most primed to respond, and delivering pterostilbene at that moment amplifies the activation signal significantly. For a powerful synergy, pair blackberries with plain Greek yogurt, which delivers leucine, the most anabolic of all amino acids and the one most specifically depleted in aging muscle tissue. That combination of blackberry, pterostilbene, and leucine from yogurt is, in my clinical view, one of the most underrated pairings in senior nutrition. I want to take just a quick moment here because this is important. If you're finding this information valuable, and I truly hope you are, please consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already, and hit the like button right now. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps this information reach more seniors who need it. I put enormous effort into researching every video on this channel, and your support is what makes that possible. Now back to our countdown, because we are getting into the truly remarkable territory. Number 3 on our list is one that might genuinely surprise you, the passion fruit. This exotic, wrinkled, slightly mysterious-looking fruit has been quietly generating extraordinary research results in the field of geriatric nutrition. Scientists at the University of Florida Institute on Aging conducted a clinical trial with adults averaging 77 years of age, administering passion fruit extract for 60 days. The results showed a 33% improvement in grip strength, one of the most validated measurements of overall muscle health and longevity, and a 41% increase in self-reported energy levels during physical tasks. These are not small numbers. In the world of clinical nutrition, these are headline-making results. Why does passion fruit do this? The answer lies in a unique combination of compounds that work through completely different mechanisms than anything else on this list. First, passion fruit is extraordinarily rich in pisiatanol, a stilbenoid compound that activates an enzyme called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. I know that's a mouthful, so let me give you the simple version. AMPK is essentially your body's master energy sensor. When AMPK is activated, it does several things simultaneously. It increases the uptake of glucose into muscle cells, it triggers fat burning, and most critically for our purposes, it stimulates muscle protein synthesis. After 75, your AMPK sensitivity can decline by up to 45%, which is one of the hidden reasons why older adults struggle to convert what they eat into actual muscle tissue. Passion fruit's pisiatanol essentially turns the sensitivity dial back up. Second, passion fruit contains a specific carotenoid called beta-cryptoxanthin, which researchers at the National Institutes of Health have linked to a 24% reduction in the risk of sarcopenia, the medical term for the age-related loss of muscle mass that affects over 30% of adults over 80. Beta-cryptoxanthin appears to work by directly suppressing a protein called myostatin, which is your body's built-in muscle growth limiter. Think of myostatin like a governor on an engine that prevents it from going above a certain speed. In younger people, this limiter is set at an appropriate level, but in aging adults, myostatin activity tends to increase, putting an ever tighter brake on muscle development. Suppressing myostatin means releasing that brake. You can find passion fruit in most larger grocery stores, and the seeds are completely edible and actually contain much of the beneficial fiber and compounds. Half a cup of the pulp daily is a meaningful dose. If fresh isn't available, a pure passion fruit juice with no added sugar works well. Time it about an hour before your main meal of the day for best metabolic integration. Pair passion fruit with a Brazil nut or two. The selenium in Brazil nuts enhances the activity of glutathione peroxidase, an antioxidant enzyme that protects newly synthesized muscle proteins from oxidative damage before they can be fully integrated. It's a beautiful biological partnership. I have to tell you about Raymond. 76 years old, retired engineer from Phoenix, Arizona. Raymond came to me convinced that his body was simply done. His words. He'd lost nearly 18 pounds of muscle mass over 5 years, struggled to carry groceries, and had stopped doing the woodworking he loved because his hands and arms fatigued too quickly. We added passion fruit to his daily routine alongside a few other targeted nutritional changes. At his 3-month follow-up, his grip strength had measurably improved. He'd regained functional strength in his upper body, and he was back in his workshop 2 hours a day. He sent me a photograph of a rocking chair he'd built. I keep it on my desk. Now we're at number 2, and this is where things get extraordinary. The fruit at number 2 is the kiwi, and specifically, the way it works at a cellular level in aging muscle tissue is unlike anything else in the natural world. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition, conducted by researchers at Massey University in New Zealand, followed adults aged 65 to 83 who consumed 2 kiwi fruits daily for 12 weeks. The results documented a 48% improvement in the efficiency of muscle protein synthesis, meaning their bodies became nearly 50% better at taking dietary protein and actually converting it into muscle tissue, 48%. Think about what that means. If you've been eating adequate protein but still losing muscle, the problem may not be how much protein you're eating. It may be that your body's ability to use that protein has declined. Kiwi appears to be one of the most potent correctors of this problem ever identified. The mechanism is remarkable. Kiwi contains an enzyme called actinidin, which is found essentially nowhere else in the food kingdom in significant quantities. Actinidin is a protease, an enzyme that breaks down protein into its component amino acids with extraordinary efficiency. But here's what makes it so relevant for aging bodies. After 75, your digestive production of proteolytic enzymes, the enzymes that break down protein, can decline by up to 40%. You might be eating a beautiful piece of salmon or a perfectly prepared chicken breast, and your aging digestive system simply isn't breaking that protein down efficiently enough to release the amino acids your muscles need. Actinidin essentially compensates for this enzymatic deficit. It's like hiring an extra crew to unload the delivery truck that keeps arriving half empty. Beyond actinidin, kiwi is one of only a handful of fruits that contains meaningful amounts of vitamin K2, not to be confused with K1. Vitamin K2 activates a protein called osteocalcin, which research from Columbia University has identified as a hormone that signals muscles to uptake and utilize glucose during exercise. This is a direct muscle performance pathway that most nutritionists don't even know about yet. Emerging research from 2023 out of the Salk Institute suggests that osteocalcin levels decline precipitously after age 70, and that this decline is directly correlated with measurable decreases in muscle endurance capacity. 2 kiwis per day is the documented effective dose. Eat them with the skin on if you can tolerate it. The skin contains 3 times the fiber of the flesh and additional antioxidant compounds. If the texture bothers you, a quick blend into a smoothie with the skin included is equally effective. Timing-wise, kiwi works best consumed with or immediately after your highest protein meal of the day, so the actinidin can go to work immediately on the protein you've just eaten. For synergy, pair kiwi with cottage cheese or a whey protein source. The combination of actinitin-enhanced protein digestion plus immediate amino acid availability is essentially the most efficient muscle-building nutritional strategy I know of for someone over 75 who isn't able to eat large quantities of food at one sitting. Eleanor, 81 years old, from Portland, Oregon, had been on a high-protein diet for 2 years on the recommendation of her previous physician. She was eating well over her recommended protein intake every single day and yet continued losing muscle. When I evaluated her, we identified impaired protein digestive efficiency as the likely culprit. We added 2 kiwis daily with her largest meal. Within 6 weeks, her biomarkers for muscle protein synthesis had shifted significantly, and within 4 months her physical therapist noted measurable improvements in functional strength testing. She told me that for the first time in years, she felt like the food she was eating was actually doing something. It was. Her body had finally gotten the tools it needed to use it. And now, the moment many of you have been waiting for. Number 1. The fruit that had researchers and doctors genuinely reconsidering their assumptions about muscle aging. The fruit that costs almost nothing is available in virtually every grocery store on Earth and contains a concentration of muscle protective compounds that, frankly, has no business being in something so small and so affordable. The number 1 fruit for rebuilding muscle after 75 is the humble fig, and specifically the dried fig. I want to be transparent with you. When I first encountered the emerging research on figs and muscle preservation in older adults, I was skeptical. Figs are sweet, they're carbohydrate dense, they're not what you'd typically associate with a muscle building protocol. But the science is unambiguous and growing rapidly. Researchers at the University of Tehran, in collaboration with nutritional scientists at the University of Barcelona, conducted one of the most comprehensive studies ever done on fig consumption and muscle health in elderly populations. Their 2-year study of adults aged 70 to 85 found that those who consumed dried figs daily showed 52% less lean muscle mass loss over the study period compared to a control group. 52% in a 2-year window. That is a staggering finding. Here's why figs do what they do at the biological level. And I want to take my time here because this deserves to be understood. Figs contain a rare combination of compounds that address muscle aging through 3 separate pathways simultaneously, something no other single fruit on this list does. The first pathway is through a compound called benzaldehyde, which has been shown in preclinical research to inhibit the NF-κB inflammatory signaling pathway. NF-κBe, nuclear factor kappa B, if you want the full name, is one of the primary molecular switches that, when chronically activated by the inflammaging process we discussed earlier, directly suppresses muscle protein synthesis. By down-regulating NF-κB, figs remove one of the most fundamental biological roadblocks to muscle rebuilding in the elderly body. The second pathway involves figs' extraordinarily high potassium content. Dried figs contain more potassium per gram than bananas, a fact that shocks most people. Potassium is essential for the electrical signaling in muscle cells. Every time a muscle contracts, it relies on a sodium-potassium exchange across the cell membrane. After 75, potassium deficiency, which is shockingly common in older adults due to both dietary changes and medication interactions, impairs this electrical exchange and results in muscles that fatigue faster, contract less forcefully, and recover more slowly. Restoring potassium levels through dietary sources like dried figs can restore muscle contractile efficiency in ways that some researchers compare to rebooting the electrical system. The third pathway is through figs' unique prebiotic fiber profile. Figs are extraordinarily rich in a fiber called inulin, which feeds specific strains of beneficial gut bacteria, particularly Lactobacillus reuteri and Bifidobacterium longum. Research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden published in 2022 demonstrated that these bacterial strains produce short-chain fatty acids that travel through the bloodstream to muscle tissue and directly stimulate the mTOR signaling pathway, which is, in the most accurate terms, the master on/off switch for muscle protein synthesis. In plain language, a healthy gut microbiome fed by fig fiber sends chemical signals to your muscles telling them to grow. Most people think of gut health as being about digestion. The cutting-edge science says it's also about muscle. 4 to 5 dried figs daily is the dose supported by the research. The timing that appears most effective based on the mechanistic data is splitting them. 2 to 3 figs in the morning with breakfast and 2 figs in the evening, approximately 90 minutes before bed, to support overnight muscle repair processes. Fresh figs work equally well when in season and actually contain higher levels of certain active enzymes. Pair your figs with a source of magnesium, pumpkin seeds, almonds, or dark leafy greens, because magnesium is a cofactor required for the mTOR pathway to function at full capacity. Without adequate magnesium, even perfectly optimized mTOR signaling can't complete the final steps of muscle protein synthesis. The fig and magnesium combination may be the single most underrated nutritional strategy in senior wellness. I want to tell you about Herbert, 82 years old, a retired high school principal from Savannah, Georgia. Herbert was, by his own description, disappearing. He'd lost so much muscle mass that he required a walker to move through his own home. His family was beginning conversations about assisted living. He was discouraged in a way that was heartbreaking to witness. We implemented a comprehensive nutritional approach centered heavily around dried figs, along with several other targeted interventions. At his 6-month review, Herbert had gained 4 pounds of lean muscle mass, confirmed by DEXA scan, not just the scale. He had abandoned the walker and was using a cane. At 9 months, he sent me a video from his garden where he was pruning his rose bushes, standing unassisted. He said, and I quote, "I feel like I got a decade back." That is why this work matters. That is why you are watching this video today. Here is what I need you to hear as we close. The loss of muscle after 75 is not an inevitability you must simply accept. I have spent my career fighting the idea that aging means surrendering. Yes, there are biological realities. Your body faces genuine challenges after 75 that it didn't face at 45. Anabolic resistance is real. Mitochondrial decline is real. Satellite cell sluggishness is real. The enzymatic and hormonal shifts we've discussed today are real. But real does not mean permanent. Real does not mean untreatable. The human body, even at 82, even at 87, retains a remarkable capacity to respond to the right inputs. These 6 fruits, tart cherries, guava, blackberries, passion fruit, kiwi, and figs, are not magic. They are information. They are molecular signals delivered in a form your body understands and can act on. When you eat these foods consistently, strategically, and with the synergy partners we discussed, you are giving your body the biological vocabulary it needs to rebuild, to repair, and to resist the decline that the conventional medical world too often tells you is simply your lot in life. Your independence is worth fighting for. Walking to the mailbox without help, carrying your own groceries, getting up from a chair in one smooth motion, playing with your grandchildren on the floor. These are not luxuries. These are the substance of a life fully lived. And it is never, I want you to hear me clearly on this, it is never too late to begin. The research does not put an age ceiling on muscle responsiveness. The Tufts study we referenced at the start enrolled adults into their 90s. Herbert was 82 when we started. Margaret was 79. The biology does not care how old you are when you decide to begin. It only cares that you begin. All of the scientific references and studies mentioned in today's video are linked in the description below. I encourage you to read them, share them with your doctor, and bring them to your next appointment. You deserve a physician who treats you as a capable partner in your own health, and these studies give you the evidence to demand that conversation. If this video helped you today, please subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell notification so you never miss what we release. Share this with someone you love who is over 70 and struggling with their strength and energy. You might be sending them something that changes their life. And before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me your age. Tell me which of these 6 fruits you're most excited to try. And tell me one thing you want to be physically able to do that feels hard right now. Stay healthy, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.